Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'm joined with my co-hosts, Zack and Emmett. We're here today just to update you on some more MSU athletic news. We got some football tidbits, some basketball updates on an official visit. Last few things of hockey news, probably, maybe for a little bit. And then women's gymnastics currently competing in the Elite Eight. Hoping to make the Final Four for a national championship. They're, as I'm saying, in competition right now, so we'll try to get you an update towards the end of the podcast on what's going on with them. And hopefully we got a team making another big run in the NCAA tournament. So let's get into the fun. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing, Emmett?
Pretty good. Everything, that athletic season slowly starting to wind down for MSU, but still a couple things to update right now.
Yeah, absolutely. College season is winding down, and of course that also means with school finishing, athletics kind of taking a little bit of a backseat too. Let's start with football. Jonathan Smith had his press conference today, as he normally does on spring practice weeks. One big piece of information that came out of that, MSU football will be having its Meet the Spartans event back this year, which if you listened to us a couple weeks ago, Zack was clamoring for. If we were going to cancel the spring game, we need to do something like that. And Jonathan Smith must have listened to that episode and heard Zack loud and clear, because he announced today that will be happening this summer. Tentative date right now, I believe, is August 21st for that. Happy birthday to me. That's the day before my birthday. So we get to Meet the Spartans event that day. So guys, what's your thought on finally having that back?
I think it's a good thing, obviously, without the spring game, quote unquote spring practice per se, but I definitely think it's a good thing. I would have probably liked to maybe have it a little bit earlier if I can be a little bit picky on kind of the date, just because the summer's so long, and this is a team that, for a lot of fans, to kind of put it bluntly, I don't hype around this team right now, and that might be like a good approach to it, because obviously with the last couple of years not going the way you wanted to go, and not going to a bowl game, 3 straight years of not going to a bowl game, so obviously that kind of factors into that. So I would have loved to have it maybe a little bit earlier, kind of get some excitement going into the year. Obviously, with it being April 1st, that's going to be right before the year starts, which obviously I think there's kind of excitement. So maybe it's a good thing, kind of getting people really excited right before the year, kind of get to meet the team too. So I can definitely see why they did that, but obviously would have loved to maybe do a little bit earlier to kind of build up that excitement for that first game that will obviously probably be taking place on a Friday again, which obviously really hope that's the only Friday game. I don't want 3 Friday games next year. So please keep college football to Saturdays besides the first game of the year. Friday, completely fine. First game of the year. Everything else on Saturdays, please and thank you. But no, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and to build on that, I also understand not having one during the spring this year, especially because we all have that case. If you've ever been to a Meet the Spartans event, especially in the last 5 years, we all have had that one player that signed their poster, and within 3 days, they're in the transfer portal. And you're staring at that poster like, thanks. So I do understand having it in the summer, obviously, and also to build on it, I do understand having it the week of the game. Obviously, you might prefer early in August, but at the same time, you might as well have people coming out to the stadium. They might have on display some of the new renovations for this year, where it's the food trucks taking over that back area, which that would be exciting. I would not mind having extra food options. That's something that when I went to Illinois and Maryland, that stood out to me for the away games. So it's nice to see the Spartans following other Big Ten schools and even MAC schools like Toledo that do that. So always good to see MSU getting with the program and joining in with that. If they have a food truck pop-up open like they've had in previous years for Meet the Spartans, that would be awesome.
Yep.
Now, obviously, with it not necessarily being the same situation of having a spring game, obviously that's just me spitballing here, but that is always something to watch out for. And yeah, I understand it being late, but the good news is about it being late, the players who sign your poster, they will not be hitting the transfer portal most likely until December, so you get a good 4 months to enjoy it. That's my opinion.
Never say never on that. I may better knock on wood, but
we have had players hit the portal by game 3 before, to be fair. So,
but yeah, I kind of agree with both sides. Having it that late is a little kind of late in my opinion. I'm not going to complain too much. Again, right before my birthday, so that's kind of nice. But I understand not wanting. I mean, in June you have all the recruiting and hoop and ha and official visit season. You have players coming in and out, so it's hard to have the staff and a team really kind of focus on an event like that while you're trying to host recruits and do all that other stuff. I get that. July's a little bit of a recruiting dead period, so maybe you could have done it a month earlier towards the end of July, but then you've got another month.
Then you're in that murky area with unofficially inviting people out and stuff. When it's a dead period, no contact, that would be a prime setup to get MSU their second recruiting violation, but the second recruiting violation from the NCAA.
Exactly, and you could do something like first part of August, or similar to kind of like how they did Spartan DogCon a few years ago. But it's just, I mean, it is what it is. Best time, the weather should be fairly decent outside of maybe some rain potential, but you're not going to have any. Where if you have it now, there's a chance it could rain, a chance it could snow, it could be 30, it could be 60, who knows? So.
Michigan weather,
Yeah, I mean,
I was just going to say I'm going anyways, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, you want to try to maximize fan turnout, so if you can kind of guarantee as much as you can with Michigan weather that it's going to be nice, go for that. So get some hype right before the season starts up and have some fun, meet the team and do all that. So that's exciting. We're excited to see it. Like you said, Zack's going to be there. I'm sure Emmett will be there. I might be able to actually make an appearance too, so maybe that's a long ways from now. My schedule could change 17 times.
Live podcast episode coming from the stadium?
Potentially. Maybe we could do something else, or Fieldhouse, one of the two. So,
Jiggy House, may it rest in peace.
Formerly known as Jiggy House. But moving on, there's some spring practice news and notes. I know we had 3 current players enter the transfer portal and will be leaving, joining Caleb Coley, so that's a total of 4 so far. Jack Carson-Wentz had kind of hinted at leaving after the season ended last year. He's a long snapper, but with Caden Schickel being injured, I kind of feel like maybe he was just invited to stay on roster just to get some more
reps. Jack Willis preferred walk-on also.
Yeah.
He is not on campus yet. He was a 5-star long snapper, I believe top 5 in the country. So.
Yeah, but he's not on campus. So, yeah, MSU didn't have a long snapper for spring practice, so maybe the staff just, I don't know. I don't know this for sure, but they could have just allowed him to stay on to work and get some reps and get maybe some more tape to go out there. This has kind of been a surprised one. Like I said, he's been expected trying to leave. So good luck to Jack. He's a top-notch kid and really good long snapper. So I'm sure he'll find a home somewhere. Hopefully get some good looks. DJ Kennard, the former walk-on who announced I think yesterday, a couple days ago, he's entered the portal, and then edge rusher Anthony Jones Jr. has also entered. So you guys want to touch on that a little bit?
Who wants to go first here?
You got it, Emmett.
So the main focus here would be Anthony Jones Jr. On the depth chart, he was, most people, myself included, had penciled him in as the number 1 priority at edge rush. With Chris Bogle heading to the draft, it appeared Anthony Jones was the prime one to take up that reign. However, Jonathan Smith did say that the silver lining in Jones hitting the portal was that he had missed most of this spring. I believe it was for an undisclosed injury. Not officially sure. I did see him at practice a couple times when I was there for media, but I believe it might have been just he was missing because of injury. So as a result, that puts currently Analu Lafele, a player with 4 years of eligibility left from Wisconsin, and David Santiago, 3 years left, 3.5 sacks for Air Force last year. Both of those two right now, I would say, are the number ones. Tyler Gillison from Cincinnati missed all of last year with an injury. He also brings experience to that room, and James Schott missed multiple games last year with injury as well. So you have 4 players who do have at least practicing against D1 experience, if not playing in games. But of them, I believe they have a combined 0 sacks for the green and white. Slight concern here. Then again, Anthony Jones only had 2 sacks for the green and white, one of which was in their 7-sack performance against FAU. So there's not a ton to say, oh, we're missing out on. That said, I wish Anthony Jones and DJ Kennard the best. Kennard had yet to make his MSU debut. The main thing going for him was he was 6'3", had a lot of length, and dressed for a majority of the games this year that were at home, which obviously means the staff valued him enough to let him obviously be in the pads on game day in case the game got out of hand. But that said, those 2, and then like Chris had touched on with Carson Wentz, it might have been a case of the staff wanted another long snapper on besides emergency backup Sam Edwards, the linebacker. So overall, the biggest loss is Jones, but at the same time, the staff already is known to be contacting edge rushers, the main one being, I believe, Cam Williams of Georgia State. He was on campus this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, according to Spartan Illustrated. So that is something to monitor. MSU is probably going to look edge. That's not a surprise. They were going to look edge even if Jones remained on the roster. So overall, you have a couple players. We are all expecting a few more to hit the portal due to the 105 roster limit, which is believed to be coming within the next week, that the NCAA will be hard capping that. So, in my personal opinion, 15 to 18, maybe 16 to 20 players might be forced to hit the portal. Jonathan Smith said he and the position coaches will be having one-on-ones with every player on the roster in upcoming days. So the spring portal opening does not close for another, we are recording on Thursday, 9 days at this point. I would not be surprised if you might see a couple players trickle out per day. You might see 1-2 players trickle for the next 9 days. Because this is, as they go through the roster, they might be saying, hey, if you want to play D1 next year, we don't think we have a spot at Michigan State. This is nothing against the players. This is the NCAA, in my opinion, making the wrong decision and screwing up. Yeah. This is nothing against Michigan State or their experience here. It's not a culture issue. It's not a locker room. It's the NCAA making a horrid decision.
And you're going to see this happen with all schools, too, not just MSU.
Some worse than others. Nebraska was at about 150.
Yeah, Nebraska's going to get hit hard. I know Kenny Dillingham from ASU was talking in the media the other day about how bad it was, and his approach to how everything is. I mean, getting rid of the preferred walk-on status and just having the hard cutoff or whatever is you're going to force some players that unfortunately worked their tail off for MSU for the last couple of years, and if they're not, going to get a decent shot or a guaranteed shot to be on the roster, then, it's in their best interest to look otherwhere and see if they can land somewhere and get some football in. So kind of sucks being it is what it is, but that's what, unfortunately, this ruling is going to change. And they'll get that out before the spring transfer window closes so players can know where they're at and try to find other options and declare themselves, eligible for transfer. So, Zach, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say we could probably go on for another hour plus talking about the NCAA and all bad decisions that they make. I'm sure we can all kind of agree on that. Obviously, this isn't that type of podcast, so we won't do that here. But yeah, I think you guys covered a lot of it. I know, Chris, you talked about Kenny Dillingham a little bit. One thing that we haven't brought up is guess who was a walk-on himself? Jonathan Smith. Any coach understands what it's like to be a walk-on that's given an opportunity, that's worked so hard. Jonathan Smith is one of those guys. Like, he understands what it's like to kind of go through that process. So if you want to take one kind of good thing out of this whole situation, I think you have a head coach that fully understands what kind of an impact this is going to have on these types of players. So I would really think that he would be more empathetic to kind of these decisions, because I'm sure there's going to be some coaches that's going to be like, okay, like, hey, these are walk-ons, like, sorry, but you're here. Like, it's just kind of that business. But then you have a coach like Jonathan Smith that understands this whole thing. So obviously it's a decision that I'm sure that all three of us got to have a say in or made that final decision. I don't think any of us would probably vote in favor of this happening, but that's just kind of the way college athletics is headed. Obviously, that's another full discussion that we could have on kind of where things are headed as well. So I'll kind of leave it at that. But yeah, I think you're going to absolutely see some attrition here on this team. I think you're going to see some guys come in. You can see a tight end. I know I was talking about a tight end. You can see some defensive ends come in as well, some pass rushers. We all remember the historic streak last year, going like 7 straight games without getting a single sack. So if we could get any help there, that would be great, because probably let's never have that happen again.
Yeah, speaking of the tight end target, Sam West of Indiana has not set up a visit with Michigan State, but they have been in contact. West has played 15 games for the Hoosiers, has 3 years of eligibility left, and has 1 catch for 37 yards. That came against Charlotte last season. That's about all that there really is for West on the tape. He does have 3 visits set up, though, so I don't feel too confident in the Spartans' chances if they're not bringing him in on a visit yet, but that's just something to monitor.
So yeah, that's about all we had for football. Let's transition over into some quick basketball updates. Tom Izzo did have a press conference yesterday, Wednesday, Tuesday, one of the last couple of days.
One of them.
Yesterday.
Sorry.
A day.
And he had kind of touched on a few different things, some portal stuff, he went all over the place. We're not going to break down the whole press conference. It was a good one. It was a very Izzo-esque rant, but...
there was no white elephant in the room, though.
there was no white elephant in the room, but it was just it was an interesting one. So if you haven't heard it, go check it out. I'm sure it's over on YouTube. I know Spartans Illustrated likes to upload those, and I'm sure you can find it with MSU Athletics somewhere. But the one thing I did kind of take away from it, Izzo did have the quote that said, when he was asked about Xavier Booker transferring, he came out pretty plainly and said, I love Xavier Booker, and I failed him as a coach. So you could tell really that we all know things didn't really work out well for Xavier Booker here at MSU. The talent was never in question. It was always there. It just didn't get put together like we thought it would. And Tom Izzo, being the coach that he is, took the blame for that and kind of took the brunt. I was really kind of upset about it. He said it kind of caught him by surprise that he was transferring, and not that he was transferring, that it just didn't work out the way that it was or that it should have. And he really did take some blame. So I just found that kind of interesting based on what we've seen from Book and how everything kind of expired or transpired. What did you guys think? Was there anything in the presser that stood out? He did mention one thing at Jace, but it's kind of a non-starter. Basically saying Jace hadn't officially made a decision yet or hadn't really put anything to bed yet, but that's just coach speak. Don't get your hopes up, folks. But other than that, the Book stuff, what did you guys have to think about that?
Yeah. The Book stuff, not super surprising that he kind of responded that way. I think one thing that no one can question about Izzo is that he loves his players. He puts in so much time in his players, and just one of those situations where things just didn't work out. And you know that if anyone's going to be difficult on themselves, it's going to probably be Tom Izzo. Like, he knows that things just didn't work out, and there's some questions about from fans more online. I don't know how many fans actually thought this, but there's some things that hey, maybe Booker, maybe Izzo don't see necessarily. I don't think this quote even says anything close to that. I think this shows that they understood each other, and that it's just one of those things that just never panned out. And it's very unfortunate. I'm sure that Booker on his own would love to be at Michigan State, would love to have kind of the year that we all were hoping him to have, and it just didn't happen. He was out of the rotation at the end of the year, and sometimes that's just how things go, and it's unfortunate. I'm definitely going to be one of those people that's going to say, I really hope that Xavier Booker plays extremely well in ECHL. I think he's going to have an opportunity there. Grow. Some people might say he's getting Tom Izzo 2.0, about 10, 15 years younger. But just want to wish him the best of luck. But it's a good quote. To me, it's not a surprising quote, but it's a quote that I think really shows kind of the character of Tom Izzo and how much he really cares about his players.
Yeah, I completely agree. It really shows how much Tom loves these guys and wanted everything to work out. And I definitely believe Xavier Booker wanted everything to work out too. But I wouldn't be surprised if both decided a fresh start was the best for them. And you can't question if Xavier Booker cared about MSU. During the whole Michigan incident, you saw Booker being one of the first guys who had to be held back off the bench. You saw when Izzo was getting interviewed after the game, one of the first guys to come up to mess with Izzo's hair was Booker. So you can't say that Xavier Booker did not care about Michigan State. This is just a situation of it not working out. Another thing that stood out to me from that press conference was Izzo being blunt and saying he was surprised by Trey Hallman's decision to go to North Carolina State. I definitely think that it is going to be interesting to see the Wolfpack this year. I think that he likely starts at point guard for them. And I do believe that Hallman has raised that team. The addition of Hallman probably raises that team to the 8-9 seed line at the minimum. Mm-hmm. I do think they're going to be in the NCAA tournament conversation this year. I would love to see a matchup, preferably round of if it's the 8-9 seed line, preferably round of 32, because that means MSU the 1 seed. Would love that. But yeah, that was one thing that stood out to me, was just Izzo being blunt and saying, yeah, I was surprised that Trey Hellman chose NC State, and then referenced it being a position matter, which really leads to some of the reports that the reason Hellman wanted to hit the portal was to be that point guard 1.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on that a little bit when Trey's portal decision hit first, that there was some reports that maybe he was looking at, and Jeremy Fear's emergence kind of maybe led to that potentially being a possibility later on. So it is what it is. I was surprised Tom came out and said that a little bit too, but
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is. Congrats to Trey for making his decision. Hopefully everything goes well there. Congrats to Book.
For sure.
We will see him next year for sure. Xavier, your Booker out in UCLA. So good luck to both of them, minus any potential.
And good luck to Garrick Norman. Do want to shout him out too.
Absolutely.
Tom Izzo did reference that as more of a homesick situation.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And so good luck to all of them. But yeah, the last portal basketball update, we did host, MSU had another player in on an official visit. Guard from Sanford, Trey Ford. He averaged.
Yes, we played him.
Yes, we played him last year. He averaged last season. He averaged 14.6 points a game, 4 rebounds. Sorry, I said that weird. 14.6 points per game, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and shot roughly 45% from the field. Can shoot the ball really well. Averaged about 38% from 3, made 73% of his free throws. All around a pretty decent shooter from every aspect. Obviously, big step up in competition. When MSU played him, he did not necessarily have the best game. I can't hold that against him because MSU had one of the best defenses in the country, and night in and night out, opposing guards were given fits on when MSU was on the defensive end. So can't necessarily hold that against him. He did go off against another NCAA tournament team in, I believe, Wofford.
Yeah.
He had like 40,
Yeah.
30,
36.
35, 40 points, so 36. Yeah, he's got the potential to really put it in the hoop and score. Hopefully that's something that he brings. I guess I don't know the full plan yet, but I would think maybe he comes in as a backup to, maybe he's our starting 2 guard. I don't know. There's still time. There's still some pieces going in, and like we said in the last one, we let Tom kind of cook in the background, and we'll analyze as it unfolds. So he's not committed to MSU yet by any means, but I think that might be the plan as far as what we would use him as, or his utilization on the roster. I haven't heard of any timetable on a decision yet, but hopefully that trends well. It looked like he had a pretty good official visit, so let's hope for MSU to close that one out. Do you guys have any thoughts on Trey?
Yeah, I have a few. One thing is, if you don't know a little bit about Sanford, they run this system called Buckyball. And it's absolute man. To say the least, they like to push it. They like to basically chuck up shots. They like to play that style of defense as well. Like, if you don't force turnovers, you're going to probably get pretty good shots if you're the other team. With that being said, I'm going to be really interested to see how he translates to kind of the Michigan State offense. It's obviously going to be completely different than anything he's done in the past. I do want to give credit to Sleepers Media. They did a little bit of research on Sanford and those players. So it's going to be an interesting kind of transition. It's not something like he can't shoot. We've all seen that he can shoot. He shot like 38%, something like that, like 6 attempts from 3. So like he's a volume shooter. So he might, like, I think it's actually more like maybe 41%, somewhere around there. So he might drop back a little bit just because of kind of the level of competition. But this is one of those situations that you want shooters to come into Michigan State. That was kind of one of the biggest weaknesses of this team this past year. He's trying to kind of, obviously it's not a done deal. If Trey Ford does come, he's found 2 guys that historically have shot pretty well. So, and you also have Kurt King either coming off the bench or being year 2 next year, and he's known as a shooter. So one thing that this team needs to have this year that is extremely important with having Jeremy Fears being your starting point guard, and then maybe a Cohen Carr, maybe a Jackson Kohler, and Carson Cooper. You're going to need to surround those guys with shooters, so you definitely can see that game plan there. But it's just one of those situations that seems like some people are really excited about this. Some people are, let's just say, less excited about it. I think it's just going to be kind of a wait and see what happens, but just trust Izzo, right, at this point. Like, he's shown that he can score. Yeah, he shows he can score, shows that he can shoot. I'm sure he's very familiar with him. So, yeah, just kind of trust that he's the guy and it works out.
One thing to remember, too, sorry to cut you off, Emmett, but historically speaking, the transfer targets that Tom Izzo has landed have all pretty much been successful in some way. Maybe not to the extent as we thought they would, but overall, even going back to the Joey Hauser, Aaron Harris, that sort of thing, Brent Forbes, those types of like players that came in, they all were effective in their own rights. I trust in Tom's and staff's evaluations, and if they think Trey can be a good fit for the offense, then they know a heck of a lot more about basketball than I do. So sounds good to me.
And the one thing that really stands out for me is the buckyball style. The good news about that is you're going to have a guy who's unafraid to shoot in transition, and that a guy who can shoot a three in transition is something that could have sent MSU all the way this year, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
If you can have a guy who consistently can drill a three, because I think we all remember that sequence against Auburn. 3, offensive rebound. 3, offensive rebound. 3, offensive rebound. Missed 2, empty possession.
Yeah, and then that Auburn kicked off their real big, like...
Yeah, their 17-point run.
That's
If you can have it where that first 3 falls, that could have flipped the whole game. Yeah. I'm not saying everything would have played differently, but if you can just have that momentum of a 3 when you just get up by 2, that could have been the moment where everything turned on its head.
And by and large, MSU really kind of hung with Auburn for most of that game. It was just...
They played an even game after.
That one stretch, you spotted them 17 points, and they could never really recover from it. So you take that, even cut it in half, you give your shot... I mean, they lost by 6, so you give yourself a real shot to come back and win that game. So don't want to get too much into that. We're trying to stay positive in this podcast. So we'll see. We'll let you know if Trey has a decision looming. You'll hear it first. So hopefully we can get some good news in that front. Do want to transition over to hockey before we update you on the gymnastics run. Lots of actually random hockey news coming out this week. I've got a few stories to hit on, and then I'll get the guys' opinions on all of those. First and foremost, our returning senior extraordinaire hockey player, Isaac Howard. Congratulations, he is now Hobey Baker Award winner for the most outstanding player in college hockey this year. We all knew it, but it's official. He beat out Ryan Leonard, Boston College forward, who is now playing for the Capitals, and Denver defenseman Zeev Buium, who in their game against BU logged like 54 minutes of ice time in the double overtime game, which was insanity. Zeev will be playing in the NHL very soon as well. So big for Ike. Congrats to him. Massive win. Becomes the third Hobey Baker winner for MSU in our program history. So congratulations to him. Speaking of NHL draft picks, NHL Central Scouting released their final list before the NHL draft coming up. 2 Spartan players / incoming players were listed in the top of those. We have freshman Shane Vinsagi. He is listed as number 33 overall with North American skaters. MSU recruit and incoming freshman Riker Lee is listed as the 28th best North American skater. So congrats to them. They will both be selected in this upcoming draft, hopefully in a good situation, but not too good where they are not going to stay at MSU for a little bit. So, but congrats to both of them. They're going to be NHL players, of course, here within a few years. Speaking of Treys and all the Treys that we've been talking about, let's add a third one into the mix. Returning goaltender extraordinaire Trey Augustine. He was a finalist for the AAU Sullivan Award, which is given to the nation's top amateur athlete. Congrats to Trey. Also, interesting quote came out today by Connor Eargood from the Detroit News. Thank you. He got to talk with Trey, and Trey confirmed that the Red Wings organization did leave it up to him on whether or not he wanted to come back to MSU or go turn pro and be in Grand Rapids. Trey kind of thought about both, but he mentioned he felt he had more he could improve on here in college. Obviously, wanting to win a national championship was paramount, but he felt like there were guys that did better statistically than him, who just had better years overall. And he said that there was really
Which is nuts when you have like a 198 goals
Yeah.
against average, but I'm not complaining. I am not complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So credit to him for feeling that he could come back and improve even more. I think Trey's got a chip on his shoulder and really wants to come back and prove that he can be the dominant force in the top, no questions. Even though I thought he was the top, no questions asked goalie, Jacob Fowler does have a good candidacy for that too. But Trey is just outstanding, and he thinks he can be even better. So cue that. He's back in East Lansing for one more season to make a run at either a national championship and hopefully a top goalie award. So that is the main MSU related hockey news. I do have one more piece of hockey news that I'll touch on after I get your guys' opinion on everything I just talked about. Go ahead.
Yeah. So one thing I really liked that quote from Trey Augustine. You can definitely tell, obviously, that he's a Michigan State guy. Definitely likes being under Coach Nightingale, like being coached by him. You saw several players last year. You saw several players this year turn down NHL contracts to come back to Michigan State. There's some that obviously didn't, and we want to wish those guys the best of luck. You have a lot of these guys that like playing on Michigan State. Next year you have, and hopefully this isn't taking any information, Chris, but next year you have 15 NHL contracts on your team. Like 15. Like if you think about MSU and their history, obviously right now it's a little bit easier than maybe it was like 10, 15 years ago to have these guys. And obviously with the college hockey continuing to grow as well and more guys being able to come into college hockey, that's going to continue to grow. But you have a team next year that talent-wise and kind of like people that want to be playing in the NHL, like that have those contracts, this is going to be one of the most talented teams next year for Michigan State that MSU has ever seen. On paper, now obviously, guess what? It's paper, right? That doesn't mean it always works out. You have some players that are coming in that are recovering from injury that can really affect them, that they can be some of our top guys. So obviously, we really like to hear that news by Trey Augustine. Hobey Baker Award for Iceman, nothing better than that. He absolutely deserves it. It's just going to be so much fun watching Michigan State next year. Hopefully he doesn't get traded, so cross your fingers. Even if he does, I still think it's probably more than a 50% chance he comes back. At least that's what I've been hearing from Jared Barron's Blacktown Spartans. So he's usually more tuned in, let's just say, than so definitely hope there, but love hearing all that from Michigan State.
Yeah, I remember when I was a student at MSU going out to these hockey games, and you would be excited to see 4, 5, 6 players who had NHL contracts on the table, and now you're talking about a team with 15. And it is going to be a very fun year. I definitely think that the Munsters will be selling out of their season tickets this year. That you have all the reason in the world to go to a game.
They sold out, I think, in 5 minutes last year, maybe 3 minutes. I was just going to say, if you're a Munster, it might be 60 seconds. It's a bad dash for tickets. I'm like, refresh, and hopefully you don't have to refresh again, because if you do, you'll probably go.
Yeah, you might want to. I'm not condoning skipping class, but if there was one day to maybe skip class, if it overlaps with your season tickets, the Central Michigan guy would.
Skip class. C's get degrees, man. Go ahead.
Technically, they do.
But
sorry, had to, the Central dig. Sorry, Amy Folin, you still owe us money. Anyway.
But yeah, MSU, I've mentioned it several times, MUN will be the hottest ticket in the hockey world next year. Partially in part of the next news I have, it's not great news for MSU hockey, but presumed number 1 pick in next year's NHL draft, who's shaping up to be one of the top prospects of any years recently, up there in the ranks of the Connor Bedards and those types of players. His name is Gavin McKenna. He plays in the CHL currently. There's a lot of rumors and circulation talking that he is wanting to make the jump to college for 1 year. He is draft eligible next year. He will more than likely be the number 1 overall pick unless something crazy goes or health-wise is unforeseen. But he is by far one of the most highly touted prospects in a while. He's expected to make the jump to college, and as of right now, the school down the road is favorited to land him. So we might be getting some duel in the D top 5 NHL draft prospect matchups with Caden Lindstrom and Gavin McKenna on top of all the other talent. You're going to have some basically future NHL stars everywhere. The Big Ten's absolutely loading up in talent in general. So good if you're a hockey fan. I'm going to enjoy it. MSU will be as good as any team in the country, but you don't like to see players of Gavin McKenna's caliber go anywhere, especially to your arch rival. I'm talking like he's on a current 48 game point streak in the CHL, and over the course of those 48 games, he has 122 total points. So, dude is an absolute force in scoring. So, and he has good hockey lineages too because he is related to Connor Bedard. So, hockey talent coming into the Big Ten like crazy. Not necessarily a great sign for MSU, but I do like our team. Give me Trey Augustine a lot. So. We'll see. That could be a fun matchup for the number of times we get to play Michigan next year. Last hockey note I have, there were 3 Spartans. I forgot to mention this on my first little batch of info. 3 Spartans from this past year's team were named All-Americans. 2 first-team All-Americans, obviously Trey Augustine, obviously Isaac Howard. No shockers there. Second-team All-American awards did go to Matt Basgall as well, so congrats to the defenseman. Second-team All-American, and gives MSU 3 All-Americans for last year. So congrats to the Spartans. Also in the MSU family hockey news realm, not directly related to MSU hockey, but former MSU hockey alum and brother of Coach Adam Nightingale,
The other Coach Nightingale.
The other Coach Nightingale won EHL Coach of the Year this year. So congratulations to Nighty's brother for winning that, and strong coaching lineage in that household. Good things, pretty much if you've ever been associated with MSU hockey, good things are happening right now. Jeff Petrie was nominated for the King Clancy Award in the NHL. Lots of former Spartans doing great. So good things for MSU hockey. But that is all I had. Anything else you guys wanted to add or mention before we check in on gymnastics?
She just trying to say have an update on gymnastics. They just finished the first rotation. MSU started Bolt, their strongest rotation. Unfortunately, it wasn't as good as they have been doing this year. Not too bad overall, though, all things considered. They did end with a 49.3875. I do think that's at least a couple of points below than what they typically get. So obviously not the start you want, but you had Sage Coleman play up by 9.95, which really helped towards the end. Obviously, you take, I think they get rid of the highest score and they get rid of the lowest score, and it's kind of like the average, like the rest of them count towards it. So that definitely helps. I know you're going to probably get rid of that score, but not necessarily the best of starts in the first rotation with all those teams. No one scored more than Michigan State did. So I think it's going to be a little bit of probably stricter judging. So I wouldn't say too much of a panic there, but Michigan's going to be stepping up there. I don't want to say weaker events, but weaker events than.
And for those who aren't quite familiar, women's gymnastics currently competing in the Elite Eight. It is divided into two groups of 4 that go against each other. The top 2 advance to the national championship match for Final Four. The first group of 4 had already went. Alabama, Florida, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Missouri advanced out of that, so they are in the national championship match. And then you will take the top 2 highest overall scorers out of our half, which is MSU, UCLA, Utah, and LSU. So hopefully we can place top 2 and move on to a national championship. So for those interested, well, this is going to be out afterwards, but it's currently airing on ESPN2. So hopefully we get some good vibes for the ladies out in that competition. And like I said, national championship could be incoming potentially. So we'll see. But you guys have anything else to add for anything we missed?
There is one thing for football. Jonathan Smith did give a general team health update. And besides the names that had already been listed earlier in the year for the podcast, like Wayne Matthews is still expected to return in June. Brennan Parachek expected to return in June. Everyone is expected to be healthy by summer camp, except for freshman defensive back Aiden West. He said that there was a minor thing, but he is expected to maybe not be full strength for the first week or so of fall camp. But Jonathan Smith did confirm no major injuries. No one's expected to miss time or games. So healing vibes towards Aiden West, but hopefully he's back to full strength and everyone remains healthy for their final spring practice on Saturday.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right. Well, that should wrap it up. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Spring practice will be over as of this weekend. So portal season, you'll see, like we said, a lot of coming and going with that for players on rosters everywhere in the country. And we'll try to keep you updated with any major developments with that. And then hopefully next week we'll get you some football-based content to kind of wrap up the spring. And yeah, again, going into the off season. So we'll try to get you an episode a week and try to get the content and all the news updated to you as well. Hopefully we'll have some good vibes on gymnastics, maybe a little more hockey and basketball news if it comes out, and baseball's ending up with their season too, so lots to still cover. We appreciate everybody joining in like always. Any questions, shoot us an email or a message on socials. All that stuff's linked in the description. Follow Emmett for press conference updates, and we try to get them up. If you need any more Spartan-related content, SpartanShadows.com has all the articles you could hope for. A lot of work featured by the three of us and all the other fine people over there. So hopefully we'll get some more exciting stuff to cover here in the next week. But until then, we appreciate everybody tuning in. And as always, go Greek.
Go White.
Go White.